TES talk. Today we're very fortunate to have Vincent Breslin, or Vinny, as I like to call him. Whether that's appropriate or not, I don't know, but I'll continue that for the interview. So Vincent is in New York City and has gone out of his way to log in for this call. So we are recording it. It will be posted on all the socials as usual, but hopefully those who are in attendance today might be able to ask a few questions at the end, etc., as per usual. So Vinny, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all, and thanks for making yourself available. I know with the time difference and everything else, it's not the most convenient, but you made it, so we do appreciate it here. Yeah, so giving context regarding us, we're the Trinity Entrepreneurial Society, and based out of Trinity College, actually the largest entrepreneurial society in Europe within universities, and it's we really pride ourselves on really engagement, and how we kind of develop that engagement is getting people that are out in industry, and some alumni such as yourself, but just whoever is out in industry doing things and maybe inspiring and paying it back and inspiring some of these mostly undergrads to, maybe see a possible path for them too. So in that context, Vinny, tell us where you are now, both professionally and geographically, and tell us potentially how you got there.
Sounds good. So I'm in New York. I think I did my time in Trinity was, I think, 2005 or 6, so quite a while ago. Since I was in Trinity, I lived in London for about 10 years, and then moved to New York in 2018. Which is where I'm based now. I'm currently running a company called Uplisting. We are software for short-term rental property managers to manage their businesses. So we do a lot of automation, allow them to scale effectively. We're a software partner with Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo. Basically, like your focal point for your business, if you're in short-term rentals, is what Uplisting is there for.
Okay, right. And you kind of bring them together. And like, what inspired you, or what was your background kind of led you into that? Because it's not, again, there's no clear paths for entrepreneurs as such, but how did you find yourself in that position late on?
So I won't go back to the very start. Well, I set up another business previously. I'll maybe go into that in a bit. But the way I got into Uplisting was I worked for a Airbnb competitor in London called HouseTrip. And within HouseTrip, I ran a company which was called Keep Me Booked. And it was HouseTrip it was kind of at the start, very early days with this Airbnb kind of phenomenon, where it's like building a market. Wasn't as popular as what it is now. Like self-catering was a thing, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. So I worked for this company called Keep Me Booked, and HouseTrip were finding it really hard to compete with Airbnb. Airbnb had raised like hundreds of millions of dollars. HouseTrip had maybe raised about 100. So they were really struggling to compete against Airbnb, and they thought that maybe a way to differentiate was to have a kind of B2B software play, basically. So rather than focusing on the consumer and all of the ad spend they were doing, they spent like $1 million in Google Ads like a month or something, or even a week. It was insane.
Wow.
So rather than doing all of that, they were talking about building a B2B. So we can there's a market for it. So you had you had Airbnb, you had Booking.com, you had Vrbo or HomeAway, you had HouseTrip, and the property owners or managers were listing on all platforms, but there was no focal point. It wasn't. There's no simple way to update prices in each platform simply, in one go kind of thing. And HouseTrip were actually feeling the pain of that because Airbnb was the main platform.
Okay.
So people would update their prices in Airbnb and not do it in HouseTrip, and then bookings would come through in HouseTrip and they'd have to get cancelled because they weren't the right prices, or they already had a booking on Airbnb. So the consumer HouseTrip were really struggling from the consumer side because they weren't reliable effectively.
Okay.
So there was an idea to build this kind of software to work in the kind of underneath in the background, which is where Keep Me Booked came. We spent like a year building the software. Did like hundreds of hours of customer development and interviews and tests and everything else, and working with an engineering team. And then before we launched that product, both businesses got sold to TripAdvisor, and TripAdvisor were more interested in HouseTrip's kind of portfolio rather than rather than what we built. So we, after all the experience, myself and two other guys from the house trip team, the DTW team, set up listing from scratch. That's the story of
Wow.
where it came from.
Cool. And in that original, you say you spent the hours building that. Like, so there was a team of you that at that stage, or you were bought before you ended up. Did that team transcend into uplisting, or was this a new?
There was a team, and it probably was. We had like a user experience designer. We had a designer, front end designer. We had like a 4 or 5 engineers working on the back end. Myself and a few others. There's quite a big team that was involved in building this. When we sold the TripAdvisor, it was only 3 of us that moved from that team into uplisting.
Cool. So you've been together now a long time, you and your co-founders.
Yeah, that was 2016. I think that all happened. So it's been a while. Yeah.
Interesting. And because like a lot of it sounds like a lot of that business is online, that the presence is online. Are you geographically together in New York City right now, or are you split around the world, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I was just talking to there's my 2 co-founders. One's called Andy and one's called Tade, and he's in Slovenia. Andy's in Leeds in the UK. I haven't seen Andy since 2018, like in person.
Wow.
We were just talking about the other day. It's like that's crazy. That's crazy. It was my wedding actually that they came to my wedding, and that was the last time I saw him. So yeah, we've always been remote. We started off in London. We were all living in London at the time. Or sorry, all living in the UK. Myself and Teddy were kind of living close enough to each other. But Andy was in Leeds. So after the first year, we've always been remote. And now we have a team of around 15, and we're all across. We're Australia, Ireland, Slovenia, Bulgaria. Where else? Kenya, Philippines, and Spain.
Unreal. And those 3 co-founders are kind of at the top of that organization. And would you have like specific, CEO, CFO, CTO, or are you just like balancing things amongst yourselves, or how does the kind of responsibilities break down between the 3 of you?
Yeah, really good question actually, because we're kind of at the point where we're moving into the next phase of the business. It's kind of we're conscious of this now. So up until maybe last year, it was quite loose, where I did the 2. So Andy and Tade were the engineers, and we didn't really put a role, like they weren't CTO or not.
Yeah,
They're both very, very equal on that. And I basically did everything else. That was kind of how we did it. And when you're trying to build a product or a software product, you want your engineers working on the software, not on the other stuff. So a big part of my role was just to ensure those guys weren't blocked in what they're building, and that they're churning out features and value as often as possible. But now we're moving more, as we've added more teammates and we've kind of grown a little bit. There has to be some structure, and we don't want to have any like real formal kind of roles and names for that or whatever. I never call myself a CEO anyway. I kind of just call myself like a founder, whatever.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It sounds a bit, even though it's accurate, probably it just sounds a bit.
It's a small company. I think it's if you're running some large 1,000-person company.
The company formerly known as Facebook, like that lad can call himself a CEO.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Definitely. But now we are putting in some sort of structure, and it's more because you need your team to be happy. So I want to make sure that we're getting the feedback from people who are doing customer support all the way through, and it's not like linear, and it's not like top level. It's like I don't know, what's that like? Horizontal, I guess. For the most part.
Nice.
But it's more about the communication channels and who reports to who and who talks about what and who makes the decisions. So we're kind of actively working on that. And being a remote team is very important to have this written down. So I'm doing a lot of writing at the moment as to what our expectations are as a company, like as a very high level, what we want in our our teammates, what we want in what we expect from people, what we don't like, and then kind of some role-based information as well, like that it just helps to make sure that people are comfortable on the same page.
And I think that makes perfect sense. No matter what the size of organization, people like to know what success looks like and what their role is and who to go to if they have a problem, or who to report. I just think, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's getting important. It is important. It's getting important as we grow. It gets even more. It's hard to hide it. It's kind of things will pop up and you're like, okay, we don't actually have a process for that. Let's figure out what the process is, and then next time around we'll be able to deal with it.
Nice. And your teammates, right? So the team that you've built, kind of demographically, would they be kind of people just straight out of college? Would it be people like at all stages in life, or like is it a very young organization?
How do we define young to like young students?
Yeah, that is true. I suppose that is true. And it's probably an irrelevant question, but I find this, like, they tell me, or what I'm reading at least, is that when you're building a team from the start, it's good to have people that can grow with the business. And, you know, as you guys, because you guys are growing and to continue to do so. And what I would imagine would be kind of useful to long-term success is to have teammates that can grow with you. And as the business grows, they can professionally grow as well. So not so much about age as in experience.
Yeah, to a degree. I think it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for so we're a really lean company. Everybody that works within Uplisting has to have, you know, up until this point at least, has had to have some impact, and
cool.
you know, a decent bit of impact, and not just you know, I haven't done internships, but the main reason being is that I don't have the time to dedicate to that, and it'd be no use for anybody. So there's definitely the need to grow and be a bit, you know, have the ability to grow within the company, but we also have to be in the position where we can actually nurture that, which is, I think, the main blocker would be. But an interesting point with Uplisting is we don't have any full-time employees, not even myself. We're all contractors.
Interesting.
So we all have our individual businesses that we use to run Uplisting, and it's kind of a decision we made based on where we started off at, because we started Uplisting as a part-time side hustle, effectively. And we did that for, I was just looking at our chart, our graph of like our revenue growth, and it's just literally flat for about 2 years, and then it thankfully starts going in the right direction. But it was a side hustle, you know. We weren't sure if it was going to work. We thought it was a really good idea. We knew we could build it. We knew there's a market for it, but it was a part-time gig up until fairly recently as well. Actually, one of the co-founders is just starting to work full-time next month, so it's like we've been quite, you know, steadily growing, and nice. he's a bit older, so he's got like, you know, teenage daughters, and he needs to have a bit more security. So it's just, you know, but anyway, the reason what I'm getting at is that we have the flexibility. So having having the contractors means that for us it's easier to manage, and we don't have to look at payrolls in Australia, Bulgaria, everywhere else, and it means that we can pay people a bit more than what they would be if they were earning a regular salary, to take account of things like healthcare and pensions and whatever else. But it also means you've got flexibility. So we have like an example of one of our engineers who is amazing, fantastic, spends his winters in Austria skiing and his summers in Greece kite surfing. And he'll do like 3 days, you know, a week in Uplisting and 2 days kite surfing. And it also depends on when the wind's up. So he has the flexibility to go, right, I'm not inside, I'm going to go kite surfing.
Dreams.
Yeah, real dream, but possible, you know. It's like, it's just about the business structure,
Yeah, amazing. And like, that's, you know, exactly what everybody would be looking for, that flexibility, you know, and that's the beauty of being within a business, that you have that creative, you know, a little bit of autonomy in terms of, you know, allowing people to do that. That's awesome.
And he would say that he actually gets more work done in those 3 days than he would if he was working 5 days a week in a company somewhere.
That makes perfect sense. And I know it depends on the individual, but I think that makes sense for a lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah. Individual for sure. Not everybody can do that kind of stuff, but so with that in mind, then it's kind of, you know, we do have some junior, you know, more junior level, but they need to be hungry and willing to learn, and through the documentation we're writing, they can understand what their expectations are, and if they meet those, then we're all good. If not, we're not going to necessarily, you know, spend a lot of time trying to fix that problem. It's more like, okay, we're going to find somebody else who's you know, maybe more hungry or whatever it is.
Makes sense. And look, I mentioned at the start that you're currently in New York City, but that is not a New York accent, and I know that for sure. Okay, I have a good ear on me. That is not you're not a New Yorker. So give us a bit of background. So we'll bring it all the way back, because that was loads of context in terms of what we're doing right now with Uplisting and what the structures look like. But Vinny, as the man, as the person, where did the journey start? And like, come on, bring it all the way back.
So I'm from Donegal town. I lived there until, you know, I went to secondary school, or the tech, Abbey Vocational School. Then my mum's Welsh, so I kind of went to university in Cardiff. One reason being
kind of went to university in Cardiff. You were there.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, definite statement. But I actually didn't do I didn't study any languages. I'm not good at languages. apart from some coding languages, but like actual, languages I wasn't so good at. So I couldn't go to many universities in Ireland. I did get into Trinity, but I decided against the Trinity undergrad. So I went to Cardiff, did a undergrad in civil engineering. Kind of had fun, more fun than study, I guess. Then I moved back to Dublin, was in Dublin, did this course or this postgrad diploma in Trinity. Kind of at a point where I was trying to find myself, I guess. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to, I always loved doing like businesses and, that entrepreneurial type stuff. I was always into that, and engineering. I loved engineering as well. But wasn't quite sure of where I was. I went to work in a engineering firm in Dublin for 2 or 3 years, TJ O'Connor's in Sandyford, who were fantastic, loved it. They were great people to work with. But through that, I kind of learned a lot and grew a lot. And then kind of realized that I actually wanted to do something more in, more, not so much civil, more kind of, I did sustainable energy. I wanted to do like mechanical stuff. So I moved to London, did a master's in Brunel in sustainable energy. And maybe I was about like 26 at that point. So I was at an age, or was at a maturity level where I was just full on.
Yeah, you know what you want. You knew where. Yeah.
As opposed to like, I think I got a 2-2 in my civil. In my undergrad, I got like a distinction in my master's. It was just a difference of where I was in my life, kind of thing.
For sure.
Then I was also at the recession. So I left like a really secure engineering job and went to London in the recession. There wasn't actually that many engineering jobs at the time. So I kind of fell back on one of my hobbies, which was web design. I've been doing web design since I was like 13. Just as a hobby. And then I started working for a design development agency in Soho, and spent a couple of years there. And then I launched my first software-based company after that.
Okay, right. And like this thing is coming up over and over. I'm interviewing entrepreneurs now weekly, and what is coming up more often than not is that people fall into their, passions and their hobbies and stuff that they're doing as kids, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, we tried corporate world, we were employed, but I just rather do the stuff that I'm organically wanting to do, and then they make awesome careers out of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, you can try. I mean, it's there for the taking. If you're hungry for it, and if you despise working for somebody else enough, then you have no alternative.
See, that's with me. I think that's the biggest driver for me. Like currently, you can tell this isn't my clothes. I'm currently at work. This is my lunch break, really, believe it or not. But it's for the time being, very happy to be employed. But I just know long term, I just don't really take direction in a kind of, especially micromanagement sense, just doesn't suit me. So I feel as though that'll be my driver back into the entrepreneurial world at certain points. Okay, and at that stage, right? So that's that. So when you set up that web design or when you're in that business, like what was that like? Just out of necessity. It sounds like back against the wall in London, not a whole lot of work, develop the business, but like, what was that experience like for you? Any kind of like lessons that you learned that you might be able to spare anybody here that might be listening that might be considering doing something similar, not out of necessity, perhaps, out of choice? Is there stuff that you learned the hard way?
Well, I mean, the contrast between an engineering firm and a design agency in Soho is enormous. Your kind of engineering firm there's a lot, I don't know if it's changed since, but very formal. Going to meetings in like not so much suits, but shirt and tie and all that kind of stuff. Like typical kind of office environment. Whereas a design agency in London is very much, I guess Mac computers. I don't know. It's just very, very different.
Cooler is our cooler.
Yeah, cooler, edgier, kind of, more relaxed. Very different. It's very, very different. So I love that though. So just experiencing that alone and working in that environment was just like, right, I want to be doing this kind of thing because this is fun. I get to go, it's different. But saying that, I didn't particularly like the person I was working for in that business. So I kind of learned about different management types. Whereas the engineering firm I worked for, my boss was amazing. The nicest guy that you could possibly meet. So that kind of then caused me. I got my experience. I had, I was going to meetings in like Google, campus. I would never got the experience in doing civil engineering. I was going to meetings in like digital marketing for or digital design for American Express. All of these different clients that they worked with was just so much different to what I had been used to. And it kind of opened my eyes a lot as to what what was possible. So yeah, having those, if you're thinking about what you want to do, just maybe spending a few months or whatever working in different environments, definitely can help you figure out what you want to do. You might prefer the civil engineering kind of office, route.
But without the experimentation, you'll never know.
You never know,
if you accept the first thing, consider that life. I think that experimentation is key. And people like you and I probably experiment maybe more than most, but that's you eventually find your path. I think.
Yeah, and not settle too much. I think one of the big things for me learning as I went through my 20s was that there were so many jobs out there that I'd never heard of, or I would never have known that existed. Just didn't come up in career guidance for some reason. But like, there's so many of them.
And in Cork and Donegal, they don't teach us these things in the school, the classroom. But by you going to, was it London? Was that just relocating to London really opened your eyes to all these experiences and potentials?
Massively. And I know Dublin is, at that point, I guess, now as well. And I think I felt that move there and going into the unknown, and then being in like Soho, and just London was just an amazing city in general. Meeting so many different people that were coming from different backgrounds, like meeting all these friends that were doing marketing or design agency, and so many different things. It was just a real education.
Nice. And look, what an experience. And I just find, irrespective of where you move, I just think it's good to move. Get out of your hometown, get into somewhere where you're uncomfortable, and grow back against the wall and grow.
Yeah.
And you see the world as it is, a very large space with lots of potential.
Yeah. I think when you're young as well, you can get comfortable. You kind of, if you're living in wherever it is for a number of years, I don't know if you get stuck per se is the word, but you're there. You don't know what else is out there. I think it's nice to reset, and that's why we moved to we were in London for 10 years, and then we moved to New York because we just wanted to reset again. It's like let's see what's going on. And then moving here has opened up so many more opportunities that we would never have had in London either. So it's kind of it's rewarding, I think.
Amazing. And you're there now since 2018, so 3 or 4 years already. You need max. That is time is moving, man. Comfortable, I'd say, though. Like New York looks like a cool place.
Good. I got 2 American kids. I don't know where that came from. Like it's very funny.
Oh my God. Well, look, I hope they keep their father's accent. That's all I hope for. They inherit it somehow. I don't know if that's genetics. That's my hope. Yeah. Awesome. And like, so people in this room, okay, so we have mentioned it before that they're undergrads primarily, people that will be listening to this on Instagram or on YouTube, and when we're going to be posting this, it's really about telling people about these opportunities. And especially in a place like Trinity that's so academic, everybody that's got in here for undergrad had to work really hard. So as a result of that, often students, and we would have known them, victims of their own success, kind of the pressure of society telling them what they should be doing from the very young age based on their abilities. Now, again, like you mentioned, sometimes it's for you. But what I hoped to do this evening is maybe, inspire people to think outside the box slightly, or, look at other options. And we mentioned it about relocating, and we mentioned it about, not being comfortable. But is there any other advice if you were to think of like, an 18-year-old version of Vinny? Like, what would you be saying? What would be, if you could go back in time, and what would you say? Or what could you have helped that person with to get to where you are now, maybe a little bit faster?
Yeah. I guess I think if you're looking to go down the entrepreneurial path or build something or, try something out, then you just need to start it. I think it's like, there's no reason to, delay or think you might do it in some point in the future. I think that was the thing I struggled with for a while. Not struggled with, but just didn't know. I didn't realize that was what you could do. You can go and sell something right now. Like there's nothing stopping you. So I think starting it, there's never going to be a perfect time, but starting it, it's a side project, a hustle, whatever it is, it's definitely worthwhile doing that. I have some ideas of when you want to do something or build something or build a company. There are a few things that I've learned along the way that are I think quite helpful. Like the first company I set up was called Shan's Plan, and it was like a recipe planner.
Okay, recipe planner.
It was with my mum.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, so my mum's was a home economics teacher in Donegal, and she came up with this really cool idea. And she's a cookery school now, and she kind of, she's amazing, and she's built up everything just by herself. So she's class. But she had this idea of a recipe planner, and I was like, okay, this sounds good. Let's kind of make it into an app. And we kind of started building this. We raised like about 400,000 euro, I think, in the end. It took years to get to this point. It was a real struggle.
Okay.
And we we had like 10,000 users on this thing. It was going nicely, but we didn't have any engineering in house. We
Okay.
didn't have anybody to build the actual app, so it was really kind of stop start. Didn't release things quickly. There wasn't that like cycle. Like when you're building software, and sometimes it's really about getting things out as quickly as possible. Quality stuff, obviously, but it is like iterating and changing and moving and adapting and listening to what your customers are saying and building a feature that you think is going to add a lot of value. That's kind of how you build a successful software business, at least. But we didn't have that in house. So eventually it petered out. We ran out of money and we just had to stop it. It was an extremely painful kind of
I can imagine
experience. And we raised a lot of money through crowdfunding, and I felt so like I was physically, like personally, I felt so responsible for this, and I hated it.
okay.
So after that, I was like, I'm never ever doing a business ever again. This is over. But then I went to work for did House Trip, and I kind of got over it at that point after a couple of years. So then that's where we started up this thing. But there's ways that I think, if I was looking back at that business, there's ways that we could have done things differently. I just wasn't aware of them at the time. So there's things like building a community first. So basically what you want to do is get to the point where you can provide something of value with the simplest, without it doing too much work or investing too much money in something or spending too much time on it. And there's ways you can do that by building a community and like building, if you're solving a problem, like, so what we're doing is for Airbnb property managers. So you can build a community around people who are Airbnb property managers on Facebook or whatever it is, and just provide some insights or advice, and even just get people talking together, and you kind of build that community. And quite quickly, you can, if you nurture that, you can then build a product on top of that, and you have your customers. Like that's
and you have the base already.
Yeah,
that's clever, because most businesses do the other way around, right? Most people would launch and then they start scrambling for the community.
Yeah. Build a community, learn from them, and then launch a product. You'll figure out what you should be building. I think it's the future of what we'll see these software businesses coming out on communities. And then not only are you in working on something quickly and you're getting something out there that has a value, you also have that moat, that you have a business.
Yeah. So I lost you. Oh, you're back. No,
sorry, my phone's ringing. Let me just turn it off.
Hilarious. I can beat that, Vinny. I can beat that. I was teaching a spinning class. I told you, I was teaching a spinning class an hour ago. My girlfriend's in France. It's her birthday today. I'm teaching spinning class. Everything's coming through my phone. All the music's like, ring, ring, ring. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I had to get off the phone. Anyway, so that's not as bad.
Sorry. Yeah. Technical issues. Anyway, build a community, because you have what everybody wants as a business, is the customers and the audience, and you're winning like from the start.
And direct market research, or direct access to market research, asking these people questions.
It's all there, because it's like one thing that you don't necessarily understand when you're building or starting a business or thinking about it is that it's all about the people. Like it's all about the customers that you're going to be working with. The earlier you can start, listening to them or interacting with them, the better, because it might turn out that you don't have an idea. It's the idea is not going to work, so don't spend the time building it.
Okay.
And once you've got the community and you're thinking of ideas, you can do. There's so many resources out there for like no code platforms where you can build an app, a very basic app, without having any code experience whatsoever, like built on a Google Sheet or something else. So I would really invest in those. If I was younger, if I was like starting out, or if I was in university, I would be playing around with these things like day and night. I just they weren't available when I was that age, unfortunately. But like I could have built my business on a no code tool. I could have built, not this one, I could have built Chansplan on no code tool. I had no need to be like finding money to hire developers to work on a project a couple of days, and then not do anything from there for weeks or whatever. So you can definitely I could have built that product, the majority of the software at least on with nobody else involvement whatsoever.
And how would so it's what's it, a no code platform?
No code. Yeah, there's loads of it. There's like, Airtable, there's Bubble, there's like Zapier, these tools where you can connect different things together. Like, big thing is like a database. So you just have your Google Sheets a database, and you can connect it to Bubble to have like a mobile app. You can connect it to even Squarespace. All of these kind of tools that you can use, or Webflow, for example, that you can use that are fairly low cost and do all of the heavy lifting for you.
Nice. And it's kind of like an intuitive platform that you just have your content, put it into it, and it sorts it for you.
Yeah, there's lots. It's vast, so there's lots of different things you can do.
Okay.
But I would like just look up no code. There's like MakerPad as an example of a solution. I can't remember the website, but there's
because it's so critical. Like
no
everything that I read is like, you need a co-founder and he needs to be technical, or she needs to be technical. You need at least one person on the team that knows how to code, knows how to build. Otherwise, you're wasting your breath or wasting your effort. And like, I am so not technical. It's not even funny. I wouldn't know to start. So things like this gives me inspiration. It gives me hope, because I can't do it by myself, and I have no guarantee that somebody technical will want to join me as a business partner, and I don't want to lose any, So that's giving me hope to me. So thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, there's context there. So it depends if you're, if you're trying to build something that's in the Facebook metaverse, then you're going to need an engineer. But if you're building something that's not as, crazily complicated, then you can build it yourself.
Nice. Okay, well, that's good advice. That's good advice. And
definitely, I'd look into that.
Okay, I will. I'm going to check that out even for myself. So, will you bear with me just 2 seconds, Vin? Okay, bear with me. Sorry about that, Vin. We just got some eager beavers joining the room. So what I would say is, okay, so right now, if you were to say 10 years down the line, so these kids now that are in this meeting, not these ones that are trying to access my room, but in the actual meeting, and the people that I'll be showing this to on social media, 10 years time, you are speculating what sort of industries or what sort of areas will be that real, where will be the opportunities? If in your humble opinion, and we're in this entrepreneurial space for a while, if you were setting up something now and you've done it, you have scaled and built slowly to a position now where you're in a good position, but that has probably taken you the bones of a decade. So if you were going to, 10 years time, what's happening? Where should people be scaffolding for and setting things up for right now?
Yeah, it's a tough question. There's a few, hot areas, I guess, at the moment. There's crypto, obviously, where I don't know where to start on that, but that's a thing. I imagine your students will know more than me about that. But it's something I can see a lot of, on people I follow on Twitter, or just generally in the kind of that sphere that I'm in. Creator economy is huge. We're kind of in that a little bit. In that a lot of our members are in the hustle game. They're buying or renting Airbnb properties, renting them out again. They're not necessarily coming from a really wealthy background. There's kind of a lot of low income people kind of doing, getting into the business that we're helping to help them grow. So, but there's also there's the wider kind of a creator economy where people are sharing insightful information, or they're selling t-shirts, or whatever it is, and that there's a huge industry there, a huge market there, at least to work into. Nice. But yeah, I don't know. I think things will change in 5 years, I'm sure.
Things and they have.
I was just sorry, remote work.
You were here, since you were in Dublin, and since you were in Wales, how have things changed? And in the next 10 years, we can expect the same thing. But go on, you were saying the remote work and the.
Yeah, remote work, the way that I run my company is so alien to what I would have been educated to do in, even when I was in Trinity. It's totally different to what expectations were back in at that time. So we're wanting to work remotely. We don't want to be going to the office every day. We want flexibility. We mightn't be doing 5-day work weeks anymore. There's all of those things that will be happening. Interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, right now, we're trying to tell these students here what direction that they can go in, and trying to inspire the people here within the entrepreneurial society, because the people that I'm dealing with and the people that I've been talking to, it's dynamic. In the workplace at the moment, people don't know what things will look like in 6 months, not to mind 6 years. But we're just trying to see what the experts in the industries can give advice and kind of direct. But it's all guesswork, really. is what everybody's telling us, so we have no clue. And so
yeah,
on an
but you
open
make
question.
it. Sorry, go on.
No,
I was gonna say, you make yourself valuable. You know, there's everything that I'm doing now, or anybody in my team. You know, we're all doing something that's going to. It's different to like a traditional company or like even Google, for example. There's a lot of value in what we're doing that would be of value to another company. So I think as long as you're educating yourself, getting involved, doing the work, going out selling your business, selling to customers, talking to customers, all that experience is invaluable. You'll be fine, you know, having that experience.
And with you, right? So you said already that, you know, you probably took a little longer now in hindsight than you would have liked to. You had an idea and you didn't think it was an option, you just wanted to jump. So people have been telling me, and in the last couple of interviews especially, people are saying, I wish, you know, I got on the phone and kind of promoted what I do and brought it to market a little bit earlier. I think people, especially in Ireland, we're not confident enough to do that. Like when, can you give any advice in terms of sales or selling yourself or selling your business, or to these kids that mightn't have that confidence just yet? What would you advise?
Yeah, totally. I'm like not extrovert in that way. I'm not somebody who enjoys picking up. At least I didn't. You know, I've trained myself. I've changed. To the point where I'm talking to customers all day long, and I will sell. I've just signed up our largest customer, like 300 properties, which is $40,000-40,000 euro a year kind of contract for a business for us. And I just know I can sell these because I have a product that's it's a fantastic product that I can stand behind. I'm not like bullshitting anybody. It's not like I'm on the phone trying to bullshit a sale.
Yes,
it's purely based on the fact that I know what they want because I've talked to hundreds of them before. I can answer all the questions that they're asking because I've answered it 100 times already, and I have a product that speaks for itself. But yeah, you have to do the sales. You just don't have a business if you don't have sales. It's so important to start up, and I didn't do that in my first one, and it was a learning point from that. So as soon as we launched this uplisting, I've been doing sales from day one.
Okay, nice. And what you were saying there, I love it. You know, that you back your product and your service so much that you don't have to sell. You just have to describe and explain. Like your sales pitch, your elevator pitch, I should say, is like, you don't have to fish after that. You know what? It's good enough.
And it's I do everything with integrity because you have these, you know, you have the sales calls with somebody and you're like, I'm not listening to you. So it's obviously just, you know, I don't trust you. What you're saying doesn't make any sense. It's just, I'm not doing it.
You don't believe them. You don't believe them.
No,
you know that they don't believe it.
Yeah. But with when you know what you're talking about and what was I going to say? Sales. It's
when you have that integrity.
Yeah, it is that, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the sale just takes months, years, even. Like we don't do. Although I always do a lot of selling, I don't do like pushy sales. So it's not like we're doing these, you know, regular emails with come to, you know, this is what we have to offer. Here's a discount. Sign up now and you get X% off. You know, whatever. We don't do any of that. But by having some sort of presence in the you know, whether it's on these groups, the communities that we have, just slowly building our customer base. There's like a kind of it just compounds to the point where somebody who's tried our software a year ago might sign up tomorrow, and it's because of everything that came, you know, before it. So it's you want to do the sales, but you don't want to do it in a really pushy way that turns people off. I think longer term, the longer you're in the game, and if you have a good reputation, it really compounds, and we're at the point now where we're just growing month on month, and a lot of it is just due to our the way we've approached the market, I think.
Nice. And look, there's learnings in that. There's learnings, and when you know your product is that good and you have that integrity, and you're not trying to push sales down people's throat, I think people listen. And like you said, I'm the same as you. I can pick up on the bullshit meter straight away. And I've been in situations where I'm selling stuff that I don't believe in. I'm like, of course I'm not succeeding in this. I don't believe in what I'm doing. So people see through it. So look, and Vinny, before now we get to questions from other people, I have one more question for you. And look, you've given us lots of information and lots of your time and experience, and we're going to get a lot from that. And there's people in this room that will just give a head start to maybe confidence and maybe that little push that they needed in terms of getting on the phone. And if they have a product, back it and be confident in your abilities, and you know, and not potentially settling for a career that maybe you never wanted to do in the first place. And just because you got into engineering and Trinity, there might be another avenue for you. But there was something that I found interesting on your LinkedIn. and I never discussed with you before, but you were ex-Irish Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Now, tell me about this. Look, you're full of surprises, you. I do want your LinkedIn. You're too humble. You would never have done. How did that come about? How young were you as Young Entrepreneur of the Year? And what
Young.
was that?
Yeah, I was. That was like when I was in secondary school, so I was a teenager.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, I've been into this kind of thing. You know, I enjoy building ideas, side projects, keep myself busy, more than I would study. So that's what I like doing. So I kind of created this very small company called Treasure Ireland. And
beautiful, Penny. Beautiful. I'm buying it right now. I don't care what it is.
It was it's kind of like a tourist quiz thing where basically you go into the tourist office, and we sold it in Donegal town, and you had like you picked up a package, and in the package was like a map and questions. So it was like cryptic clues for adults and then just easy questions for the kids. And you, as a tourist, you basically went around, you followed a map around Donegal, and you got to see all the tourist sites, and at the same time learn about things and have a bit of fun doing it.
Oh,
so we did
lovely.
that.
Lovely.
It was so much fun.
Wholesome.
So wholesome. It was so much fun. Like we went things like going to a printers, like negotiating prices with a printer, getting these physical things made, and finding all of like getting a small pencil from like buy where do you buy those? Where's the wholesalers? Like all of that kind of stuff is really enjoyable, fun stuff. And we didn't have so much internet back then, so it was more like going around to these different places. Obviously, my parents helped me a lot. But that
Shad again, right? Is that your Shad's man? Is that your brother? Look.
Yeah. You can see where it came from, I think. But
love that.
she or it was part of the the younger. I don't know if it's still a thing. I'm assuming it's still a thing. But we did it. You go to your regional. I think maybe like a Donegal final, and you go to a regional final for Ulster, and then we went to the All Ireland final it was actually in UCD, I think, in RDS. Oh no, not RDS. Whatever the UCD place is.
Okay.
And there's like loads of people, loads of students with their business ideas, and I won my age group at least.
Yes, Vinny, get it.
Yeah.
And look at you now, NYC, own business. Look, they knew something. That Donegal, they know foods. We've always said it. They knew a good thing when they saw it. Very good.
I mean, it's great fun. A lovely little side project. And yeah, it's great.
And learnings, right? Stuff that you were kicked into the deep end at an early stage, and those are learnings you still be there, no doubt.
I think another kind of learning from that period at least is it's as when you're building a business, you're working around systems quite a bit. You're kind of you're not like you're doing it ethically. You're not cheating, but you're not doing things by the book all the time. You want to be removing as many barriers from yourself, and maybe pleading ignorance sometimes. Don't bring in an attorney straight away to manage everything that you're doing in your business, because you're constantly like skirting, on the right side of it, but just skirting.
And that's you got to do it right at the start. That's exactly what we need to be doing. So, look, solid, and inspiring. And again, we need again, we don't have to pretend that we don't know each other. But since I've met you, it's always been inspiring because you're such a normal, cool, humble dude that is doing big stuff behind us and creating his own path. And I think people need to know people like you, and hopefully someday I'll be in that sphere as well, that you can just give people an opportunity to do something sometimes outside the norm, because all of us are individuals, and just because there are paths led before us doesn't mean we can potentially blaze our own trails. So,
absolutely. And I've totally been through that where I thought I was on a path, and I was like, I don't want to be on this path. I'm going somewhere else. And you just have to make the leap sometimes. But I have my such a supportive family. My wife, like, I don't know, you obviously know Shauna, but I couldn't have done any of this without her, being the main breadwinner for a couple of years, all that kind of stuff. There's challenges you need to work through and go through. But it's everybody's path is different, and not everybody has those opportunities or challenges, whatever it is. But yeah, it's there for you if you want it.
Love that, Vinny. Love that. That's perfect. Like, look, I'm not going to ask if there's questions from the room. I'll welcome them now. There's a little text box. If you do have a question for Vinny, pop it in. And if not, Vinny, you're going to be off the hook fairly soon. I really appreciate your time today. And like what I'll be doing from here, we'll be taking snippets from these recordings, and over the next few weeks and months, we'll start be putting them online. I will tag you and everything. We'll put on your contact details if that is okay with you. And people that might be in similar industries or potentially going down similar fields, if you're comfortable with that, would there be a way to people that could reach out to you? Is there an email address or a website that you can direct people to?
Yeah, I think Twitter is probably the best. My Twitter handle is just my surname, so @Breslin. And there, my inbox is one thing I need to work on. Well, sorry, I need to work on loads of things, obviously. But, one main thing I need to work on is my inbox. So I'm more active on outside of that.
Okay, so Twitter @Breslin. And
yeah.
Look, we'll be reaching out. But look, thank you so much now for your time. And we do really appreciate it. And I think potentially you could be the last of our webinar series, because hopefully from next week on, guys, we'll be doing this in person. But it was good to get a guy in from NYC, because as lovely a guy as this guy is, I'm not sure he would have been flying in to see us. So I'm glad I got you online. The webinars work. And Vinny, have a lovely afternoon. It's evening time here. I'll be going to bed soon enough. That spinning class is still rattling me, so I'm going to get into bed now. But
all right.
Thanks so much, mate, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
And we'll put all your information and contact and for your business as well as you onto our platform. And hopefully, some guys will be able to reach out to you once they see this online.
Perfect. I've enjoyed it, so thank you so much, Daniel, and everybody else.
And a pleasure, mate. All right, we'll chat to you soon, mate. And safe.
Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your time in NYC. I'm envious. I might see you out there someday.
I'll see you at home. Yeah.
Christmas time. Take it easy, mate.